former head of the Crown Prosecution Service says that shoplifters should be spared prosecution and jail. Sir Max Hill thinks that it would help tackle court backlogs and overcrowded prisons. He believes that they'd be better off undergoing rehabilitation for problems such as mental ill health or drug and alcohol abuse. But his comments come as during an epidemic of shoplifting where ministers have piled pressure onto police to crack down on them. So do you think he's right or is he wrong on this? Mike, I'm going to start with you.
Well, I think Sir Max Hill is completely out of touch. Now, if you're talking about shoplifters 30 years ago, you're talking about an old lady who might have, taken a couple of items out of her supermarket.
Is that common?
Put them in her bag. Put them in her bag and gone away. But shoplifting these days is a crime which is increasing in both volume and severity. And shoplifters are aggressive, thuggish people now who barge into shops, some of them small traders who can't afford to lose their goods without them being paid for. They bully and intimidate the shopkeepers. They swagger around. We've even seen the videos of people going in with huge containers and filling them up with goods off the shelves. So it's becoming a major crime. It used to be a minor crime. It's now a major crime. It's intimidating and frightening. Years ago, when I first lived in America in the 80s, I couldn't believe these shops where you could only see the shopkeeper through a little opening like that, a hole in the wall, and all his goods were behind him. I thought, thank God it's not like that in the UK. But it is becoming like that in the UK. We're having to protect our shops from thugs, vicious, nasty thugs.
OK, but just to be very clear on what Sir Max Hill said, he didn't say anything about violent criminals. So if they're committing any kind of violence and stealing this stuff...
But that's what shoplifting has become.
Has it?
Oh, yes.
No, you can't. You cannot do the whole umbrella.
You've seen videos of shoplifters.
Right, you can't say everybody who's a shoplifter goes in wielding a knife. Right. So you can't. So for a start, as with everything, you cannot put it all under the same umbrella and say this is how we treat X, Y, Z, because everything has to be taken individually. And so if you've got a serial shoplifter who's used aggression or force or violence, that obviously has to be treated.
But it started with shoplifting. And once
but
you turn a blind eye...
Do you know, it doesn't start with shoplifting. It starts with bad parenting, it starts with bad education, it starts with bad funding.
It's criminality. It's criminality. And I would take a lot of women out of jails in this country I don't think should be there for crimes which aren't really aggressive and stick the shoplifters in there.
But hold on, under your theory here, we could end up with lots of women in prisons for stealing food to feed their children, because at the moment we're in a cost of living crisis. Now, do you think it is a coincidence that there's been an increase in shoplifting at the same time as we have a cost of living crisis?
Danielle's just said you can't brand everybody, you can't tie everyone with the same brush. I totally agree. Take each individual case, but shoplifting, which involves violence and threatening and intimidating behaviour, must be cracked down upon. And I believe that people start shoplifting thinking they can get away with it. They progress to more shoplifting, more goods, and then get cocky because there's never any policeman on the street outside to stop the shoplifters running out of the shop with an armful of goods. They know we don't have bobbies on the beat anymore. We've become a lawless country in the high street and we've got to change it.
But they've done a scheme already, and it was... What they did was they took a few criminals that had been caught for shoplifting, quite a few actually, and they put them through a 4-month contract with the police rather than putting them through the judicial system.
Yes.
And I don't know what that involved actually, it wasn't particularly clear, but presumably volunteer work, maybe a bit of rehabilitation, and the reoffending rates were much lower had they went through the judicial system. So looking at this scheme alone, surely we need to think about shoplifting in a different way.
Well, I don't think about shoplifting in a different way because shoplifting is just another name for theft. It is theft. And what levels of theft? You say, oh, that's acceptable, that's not.
Well, you're saying, let's go back in time, right? There's always been thieves. That's always been, right? If we're at a situation... This is what makes me really sad. If we're at a situation where shoplifting is the highest it's ever been and it's at this traumatic state, you have to question why that is. You have to ask why are people... Because I don't know about you, Mike, but if my kids needed feeding and I was hungry and they were hungry and I walked past the Tesco's, and I could nick it and feed them, and that was my only way of doing it, I would do it.
I don't believe you
and
would.
I've never stolen my life.
No,
I've never stolen my life.
You see, Danielle, I don't believe you would, because you're not that sort of person. You're making excuses for people who you think are in impoverished positions.
Baby milk, nappies, things like that.
Baby milk is always used as the go-to for a shoplifter. Most of it's not baby milk. Most of it is frozen steaks. Most of it is huge quantities of alcohol. Huge quantities of alcohol. And by the way, we'll go down the American route, where in San Francisco now, you can steal up to $700 worth of goods from a shop before the police will even come out and investigate the theft. That's where we'll get to, and that is wholesale crime.
Mike, we're at £200 already, and as for baby milk powder, it does come up only because it is so unbelievably emotive, but some shops are actually putting it in casing because it is being stolen at such a high rate. Mark from Hampshire, what's your views on this? Do you think that we need to crack down on shoplifting, or maybe we need to think more about rehabilitation?
Hi, good morning to everyone. I think Mike hits the nail on the head. I own a convenience store. It's a never-ending battle. I don't even stock baby powder, so there's that one going out the window.
But because it kept getting stolen?
The main things which they steal: small chocolates, soft drinks, alcohol. Mm-hmm. And to say that that's a necessity is an absolute joke.
Absolutely.
I've got to the stage where I don't even bother reporting to the police unless I want to waste half an hour or an hour's worth of my time to go online, upload the CCTV, and then all I get is a pointless crime number, and that's it. So I print off there. If I see someone stealing, look back on the CCTV, I print up their picture, front door, name and shame. I've had enough.
Mark, I hear your frustration, absolutely. Have you had any criticism from the police for doing just that?
I haven't had any criticism from the police.
Okay.
I get praise from my loyal customers who say, yeah, fair play, well done.
Yeah.
Well, I'm sure because they're the ones at the end of the day that are fitting the bill for this theft, because I'm sure you have to put your prices up to make up the difference.
Exactly, yeah, you've got to make shortfalls in other ways.
Mark, can I ask who's doing in general, who's doing the stealing of the soft drinks and the chocolates?
Mainly the younger generation.
Yeah.
It's across the board for sex.
And what would you say the reason behind it is? Is it just for kicks? Is it just to get that sort of adrenaline rush, or because maybe they really can't afford it?
It's not because they can't afford it. Okay. That's a feeble excuse. It's just that they know if they get caught, the most they'll get is me absolutely rollicking them
Mark,
because the police are not interested one iota.
Yeah, Mark, can I just put this to you? Most people think, shoplifting. Well, if it's Tesco's, it doesn't matter, because Tesco's have got billions of pounds and they're not going to, be dented by a frozen steak missing. But if you run a small business like yours, everything that's stolen out of your shop comes out of your own pocket, doesn't it? And it makes a difference to how you can run your business.
Yeah, that's spot on,
But Mark, haven't we always had, I'm not being funny here, Matt, and it's not right, but haven't we always had only two school children allowed in at a time and that kind of thing? Like, kids have always nicked stuff from shops. That doesn't make it right. No, it doesn't make it right. No, but I don't think what we're seeing, I don't believe that what we're seeing in this increase in shoplifting is due to kids who go nicking stuff, because that's kind of always been, and it's not okay.
Have you seen an increase, Mark?
It's older than kids. It's teenagers and young adults. Okay. We do limit the kids coming in to keep an eye on them, but it's mainly the slightly older generation which do the thieving, and they think that they're entitled to it.
Mark.
And even when I tackle them, they say, "No, you can't touch me," and I say, want to bet?
So they've got no fear then of police or clearly the judicial system. I wonder whether, if schemes like this one works that they tried, where they put people in a 4-month contract with the police, rather than giving them a criminal record. The problem with giving a young person a criminal record for stealing some fizzy juice is that makes it harder for them to get a job in future, which could only compound the issue potentially in the future. So maybe this individual has a point.
The trouble these days, there's no consequence for people's actions. Okay. If you steal, yes, you should have a damn criminal record.
Okay.
They make the decision.
All right.
They do the thieving, and it's the modern society. Oh, I'm not to blame for my actions. Well, you are.
Okay, Mark,
I totally agree.
Thank you very much for your call. Martin from Buckinghamshire, what's your thoughts? Do we need to crack down on shoplifting, and maybe we need to look at it in a different light?
Yeah, good morning. Yeah, so with regard to shoplifting, yeah, we do need to crack down on it. And yes, there is people that are stealing for the cost of living. I work in a major retailer, and they're not stealing for the cost of living. You know, organised crime is a big problem for us. You know, they're coming in. They're technically coming into the country, stealing around all our shops, and then taking it back out of the country to sell it.
Taking it back out of the country to sell it. Okay, well, that's interesting, because actually my argument to that would be a lot of people are seeing, you know, we see footage of people stealing steaks, as you said, and they're selling them on what we would consider the black market, but down the pub and things like that, or on the doorsteps, and people are buying them because of the cost of living crisis, because it's the only way they can afford a nice steak, which is why the cost of living crisis, although it's organised crime, probably has an impact on it. But if you're saying they're selling it out of the country, that's the first I've heard of that. What sort of things?
Well, I've heard of international gangs who do come here that are organised and distribute on places like Oxford Street in London and Bond Street and go after high-value goods. And they're organised...
And take them out of the country?
Yeah, organised gangs. And there is a route to get them smuggled out of the country. Look, I've had no experience of that, but I have read about this happening.
And are they doing this violently? Is there any sort of weapons involved?
Yes, they do come in. They come in and in groups and just select it all and walk out the door with it.
Yeah, I'm just not sure that's what Sir Max Hill's discussing here. I think he's discussing more the individuals that slip a few things into their bag, or maybe a bottle of wine under the coat. Those sorts of that sort of shoplifting. But thank you very much for your call. Really interesting. Sandy from West Sussex, what's your views on shoplifting? Do we need to get tougher?
Yeah, well, first of all, we can't just have a blunt instrument. You can't just say, oh, you stole, I don't know, baby food, and you stole steak, and you stole £1,000 worth of stuff. We're treating you all the same. Can't be done. But if we look at it more closely, and we are targeting, so everybody is prosecuted and dealt with according to what they've done. But when we're looking at a mother, we've got to treat them differently to, like a group of thugs who just want to steal for the sake of it. Those people, young people, and I'm sorry to be so awful, but like when they're 14 to 25, that sort of age group, those people need to be tagged and tagged securely. They should be under house arrest. If they're under 18, their parents should be dealing with them. And if they're over 18, they shouldn't be able to get out of the house.
Sandy, when you're dealing with children, if you're dealing with 14-year-olds, when you're dealing with young people of that age, their brains haven't fully developed yet. So what you're doing is you're giving young people whose brains haven't developed, who are making very silly criminal decisions, but you're giving them a criminal record that's going to last.
You don't have to. Like I said, not a blunt instrument.
I agree with Sandy, as in take each case. Yeah, take each case as it comes. And I do agree with Mike in one way, as in, you do have repercussions for your actions. I say this to my own kids. There should be repercussions. Whether that should be a criminal record that follows you for the rest of your life, absolutely no way. But maybe if they had to do some community service, as we called it, litter picking, when we were younger, how embarrassing you had to wear the bright coloured vest. And even if you did or didn't pick up the litter, it's irrelevant, because you had to stand there with your litter picker and your black bin bag. I think those kind of bring back that kind of stuff, because at least then they are getting some repercussions for their actions, but then not a criminal record.
Then you're punishing with shame, and I know psychologists would have a field day with that. But Sandy, I wonder if you've got an individual and they're stealing just under the £200 threshold of stuff to feed, let's say, a drug habit. Now, do you think it would be beneficial to give that individual a criminal record and put them in already overcrowded prisons? Or perhaps we go down the other route that's being discussed now and we rehabilitate them, we look at their drug habit and we try and cure that rather than the symptom, which is the theft?
I used to live near Ford Prison, so I'm not that far from it. Prison, and it's an open prison, prison isn't the place to get somebody off a drug habit.
Yeah,
okay?
So
These people are stealing for all different reasons, and therefore, if you look at the individual, I know some people will say, oh, you're too caring, but actually the punishments that I give them would be strong enough to be a deterrent and to rehabilitate and to stop people losing their livelihoods because people are walking into their shops and stealing. I can't see the harm in tagging people, and if they're young enough, taking away their internet, and if they're of an age where they're going to be humiliated. Some of them just, even if you look at them in the wrong way, they want to fight.
Yeah, looking at the numbers though, Sandy, that'll be a lot of tags and probably quite expensive, but on a case-by-case basis.
It would be cheaper.
Sandy, thank you very much for your call. Emily, we've just got so many calls on this. I want to try and get through as many as possible. Emily from London, what's your views on this?
Well, I'm kind of with Sandy. I think the chap from the CPS is right. Now, I'm not talking about organised gangs, but the majority of shoplifting is because of drug and alcohol addiction. And the thing is, I'm not condoning any violence and all that, but obviously those people are already on bail the majority of the time, so they know if they get caught, they're going to be back in the system. And the thing is, they're like hamsters in a wheel. I live in an area where shoplifting and petty crime is a big part of the local economy, and people that are buying the goods, people that go to work, people that you would never think, but they buy the goods because they're getting a bargain, for want of a better expression. The junkies are desperate, are getting exploited. And what's very sad about it, I'll give a quick example. I know these two girls locally, just acquaintances, because of their shoplifting. And I saw them recently, and they said, we've just come out of prison. They're back out shoplifting. And I said, did you not get any help? They went, oh, no. So back they are. And the thing is, they're just regaining into the system. And I know, I get Mike. I think he's quite, closeted at times. I was at school and I was asked this question, what do you want to be when you grow up? And nobody put their hand up and said, I want to be a drug addict or I want to be a prostitute. So until we deal with the root causes, the organised gangs, yes, you need to deal with them, because you cannot have people running in and, stealing high-level perfume. That's a crazy situation. But that is gangs and intimidation, and that's a totally different sphere of shoplifting.
I understand what you're saying, but your two friends that you brought up, they sound quite organised to me. They don't sound...
Well, they're not organised. Their lives are very chaotic. They're homeless. Sometimes I see them and they're very, very dishevelled. And
Emily, you're making excuses for people who have, unfortunately, their lives have run out of control. My basic premise is it's wrong to steal. And Britain is a very generous country. We have a fantastically well-developed welfare state. We have opportunities for people to be assisted and aided throughout their life. And it's wrong to steal. And those who can't face up to life often say, couldn't care less, I'm going to steal. There's no policeman on the streets, I'm going to do it that way.
But Mike, with respect, they're at the stage. I understand that if they're, but they've started and they're on the path to addiction, and they are now addicts. And no disrespect, I don't think we've ever claimed anything. And yes, we're very privileged in this country. But if you are some sort of addict, you benefit. If you wouldn't get that. They're homeless anyway, so they don't have access to benefits, bank accounts, stuff like that. What do you think people to do? I get that, but they're human beings, and they didn't start off. Whether your other lady on the panel said about bad parenting, bad education, deprived area. It seems I'm not making an excuse, but when someone is in that, they've got to do it. They're organised from the point that they know they have to get up in the morning and go and score their drugs, and the only way they're going to do that...
Emily, I agree, because I'm sick of this system where it's all about punishment. Why everyone knows with every walk of life that you get so much more if you reward people for good behaviour. Everybody knows that works better than punishing bad behaviour. Absolutely. We should be looking at the fundamental reasons as to why this is a problem right now. And I'm telling you, this is a problem right now because it's ridiculous how expensive the cost of living is at the moment. That's why it's right now such a huge problem.
Emily, thank you very much for your call. Robert from Lincolnshire, what's your thoughts? Do we need to get tougher on shoplifters, or actually do we need to think about rehabilitation?
Hello there, Storm. Hello, panel. I totally agree with Mike on some of the subjects he spoke about, the other lady panellist about parenting as well. The situation is, I'm now 70. I was brought up back in 1950s, 60s. If I had done wrong, my old man used to give me the belt, and the local bobby used to give us a clip round the ear roll, take us home, and you were in trouble. You knew you were going to be punished for what you done. right? I can see your face. I can watch you on television as well. But the thing is, the thing is, I was brought up to respect the police and respect people's properties. Nowadays, the children of today, and I will state this, and teenagers, because the government brought out the bill that you wasn't allowed to chastise your children with any form of corporal punishment.
But corporal punishment would be severe. But Robert, I understand what you're saying. You think we've got softer on the young. I think every generation thinks we got softer on the young. But yeah, but I mean, do you want to rule with fear? I think you want to have respect. You don't want to rule with fear and having. No. The problem with allowing people to hit each other is people will abuse it. Any kind of hitting is abuse, surely.
One of my sons I caught where he pinched a load of stuff out of a shop. He brought it home and I found it and I confronted him and I took him down the police station by the scruff of his neck and he got ripped off by the local sergeant. I said to the sergeant, really rip into him to frighten him, and he never done it again in his life, and he's now in his 40s and he respected me for doing that. And this is what's gone wrong now. If you get caught shoplifting now, I went into a major clothing outlet in the UK not so long back. I caught 3 ladies shoplifting. I caught them. I went to the desk and reported they were shoplifting, and I picked up on it straight away, and they said at the desk, we're very sorry, we can't do nothing about it because we haven't got security on today. Yeah. And then I said, right, okay.
No deterrent. There's no deterrent to shoplifting.
Well,
that's the thing.
I think Robert's saying 2 things here. There's no deterrent, but there's not enough punishment on the other end.
Yeah, but the deterrent, I mean, in having a fear of being caught shoplifting, it's no longer the fear there.
Robert, thank you very much for your call. Thanks for all your calls on this. After the break...